Hey everybody, Will Alexander here. Oh, start again. Hi everybody, Will Alexander here with the interview chair brought to you by Canine Chronicle TV and ProPlan. Today's interview chair is Dr. Midge Martin. So relax and listen to Midge. It's going to be fun. Hi everybody, Will here with this week's interview chair. This week we have Dr. Midge Martin. Hi Midge, how are you?
Terrific. Okay.
How are things?
Technology is not my forte.
How are things down there?
I had to get a computer to do my dissertation on.
Oh.
And I swore at the end of it that my two index fingers would be 2 inches shorter than all my other fingers. So I never took typing, which was probably a big mistake.
Yeah, we were all forced to take typing. I think I took typing.
No, I never was, and now I'm sorry.
Yeah,
but I'm not going to take it now.
Things are good down there right now.
Yeah, hot.
Yeah,
today is going to be hot, and it's going to be progressively hotter through the weekend.
Where exactly are you, Midge?
I'm in a wonderful town we're out of town, called Libertyville, Illinois, which is about 45 miles north of Chicago.
Okay.
We're kind of halfway between Chicago and Milwaukee.
Libertyville sounds nice, though.
It is nice, and it's a wonderful little town. I don't spend much time in there, unfortunately, because it's a very busy town. They have some wonderful restaurants, and they have all kinds of community activities. There's a farmer's market every Thursday morning, nice. Which I don't get arranged enough to. I get up very early, but I start out very slowly.
We have one here on Saturdays, but I'm never home, so.
Well, I'm home now, but most of the time, which is another story. But I'm having some mobility issues with arthritis and stupidly enough, varicose veins, which I had when I was in my 20s, and now have attacked me again, and I'm getting them fixed, but I can't. I'm having terrible trouble standing up for long periods of time, and I used to be able to stand for hours, as one does when you have 175 dogs and 2 groups and an owner-handled group, and so on. But and I've found the last 3 assignments I've had have been extremely difficult and painful.
Oh,
so I've had to curtail that for a little while, but I'm working on getting everything fixed.
Oh, good.
So that's what this summer is all about. Somebody said, "Oh, do you have big plans for the summer?" And I said, "Actually, no. I want to feel better." I have gotten out on the golf course, but it takes some doing.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you'll be back full force. So.
Yes, I have to do that junior showmanship thing. That's on my agenda for the weekend.
Oh. All right, let's get started. Tell me how you got started in the sport of dogs, Midge.
It was a very long time ago. This is one of those that starts once upon a time. I was married to Roy Horn at the time. We married right after I graduated from college. And we talked about having a dog. And we got a purebred dog, a miniature poodle, silver, that we named Jacques. How original. And we knew nothing about dogs. Dogs have been a part of my life all my life. Unfortunately, never owning one because I'm an Army brat. My father was a career military Army officer, and we moved even more than most military families. And so, yes, when we get so-and-so, we can have a dog, or when we get to, and it didn't happen. In 1951, I think, my father was transferred to open a godforsaken, abandoned military base, military post in the Mojave Desert in California, 30 miles from Death Valley, where troops would come in and be trained and then go directly to Korea. It was that time. And so for the first year he was there, we lived on the post. We were the only family on the post. And when he got there 2 or 3 months before we did, because we were in Atlanta, he had been stationed in Atlanta, Georgia before. And my brother was graduating from high school. So he went out and started his job. And we came out after my brother graduated from high school. So, and while he was out there by himself, there was a dog that had been passed around, and he took it. And it looked very much like an English Cocker.
Oh, okay.
Red and white. Well, at that time, Cockers weren't separated,
Right.
I don't think, into American and English Cockers.
Yeah, probably not, because that wasn't.
But he looked very much like an English Cocker. And who knew about registration or anything like that? He was a dog. He needed a home. Daddy was lonesome. Bingo. And so we had Tinker for 2 years, and he had to be put down. He had hepatitis. There was not a vaccine at that time. This was middle 1952, I think. And it was heartbreaking.
Sure.
Absolutely. As you know, I mean, anytime, any dog, anytime.
Yeah.
And so then we got another dog. I mean, because you can't be without a dog after you've had one for a while. And there was a dog called this dog looked like a shaggy, kind of like a Beauceron, actually. It was kind of a shaggy Doberman looking. It was purported to be a Basque Shepherd.
Okay. Not even sure what that is.
I don't know. I haven't looked it up. So but this indigenous to this area, the Basque people from the Basque region, which is Spain, Portugal, in that area, I think. There was a community or something in the Southern California area, but anyway, we got Chip. And when Daddy was transferred, we took him there, and then we went to Norway, so Chip couldn't go, and we found a home for him. So, and I kept getting the old thing, when we get back to the United States, you can have a dog. Well, when we got back to the United States, I was through high school, was going to go to college, and that wouldn't work either, we don't think. Anyway, so Roy and I got married right after I graduated from college, and we've got this silver miniature poodle
Named Jacques,
who had champions in his pedigree.
Oh, there you go.
Well, Jacques was not very well behaved, and we didn't know about crates then, and we had a large sound system, and Jacques ate the big speaker out of the stereo. So we had to do something. So I took him to obedience class, run by a woman. By then we were in South Central Pennsylvania, Hanover, Pennsylvania. And there was a lady who raised German Shepherds and had an obedience class. So I took Jacques to obedience class, and he did pretty well. I mean, he's a poodle after all. You know,
Right.
Poodles
They do well.
Can do anyway. It can do anything. So I took him, and the teacher said, "You know, you're really good at this. Have you ever been to a dog show?" No. You know, what's a dog show? You know, that kind of thing. So we were in South Central Pennsylvania, 50 miles from Harrisburg. The Harrisburg show, then as now, was a big show. It was at the Farm Show building in Harrisburg, indoors, March. And so Roy thought this was a dandy deal, that we could go and raise dogs and make money and show dogs. This was really something. We went to the dog show. And the first person I bumped into was Elsie Neustadt. Greyhounds.
Okay.
And so we had a list of breeds of dogs that we were going to look at. And I think we had Westies, and we had several. I don't remember all the breeds we had, but we kind of ended up at the Hound Ring, and when Greyhounds were in, and Elsie Neustadt and I engaged in conversation. And she was showing, I don't remember who she was showing, but she tapped me on the arm and said, "Do you think he's as good as Firefly?" Well, I didn't know who Firefly was. But the way she said it, kind of, I got the idea, and I said, "Who could be as good as Firefly?" Which was apparently the right thing to say.
Yeah, thank goodness.
Thank God. But, and I say that only because we used to bump into Elsie Neustadt and with Richard Bauer, her handler.
Right, yeah.
For years after that. And always engaged in conversation. I mean, she was a lovely lady. And Richard, of course, was absolutely wonderful. Unless you got in a car with him. Don't ever.
I never did that. I knew Richard, but I never got into a car with him.
That was very wise. Was very wise. It was not a good thing to do. But anyway, so after Greyhounds at Harrisburg was Afghan Hounds. And we were absolutely gobsmacked and said, "This is really where it is. This is where it's at. You know, we need an Afghan hound." So we went home and did all kinds of homework. We wrote to all the top breeders. We had a Dog World magazine, and we wrote to every breeder advertising in Dog World magazine. And then we got at that time, we got the Sunday New York Times. And there was an ad. 3 shows, 3 blue ribbons, 9-month Afghan hound for sale, grandeur lines. Say, hey, this is really so. We threw all our research out the window, drove to Long Island, and bought Ahmed. This was 1965, I think. I had 2 babies at the time. And there was Ahmed. Kandira's Abdul Ahmed, I think was his name. He was enormous. He was easily 29 inches tall and the biggest teddy and the sweetest, he's the sweetest dog on the face of the earth. He could have walked. We had a 3-foot fence in the backyard, downtown Hanover, Pennsylvania. And he could have stepped over it probably or fallen over it, but he didn't. He never moved from there. So we started learning about, we learned all about Afghan hounds. Mary Morgan, I don't know if you know Mary Morgan or know of Mary Morgan. She was a protege of Wally Paday's, actually, of Scheherazade Afghan. And when he was in the Air Force, his last Air Force assignment, where he had to go someplace, and his old dog was champion Ali Baba of Scheherazade, black and tan, big black and tan dog. And he gave her to Mary because he didn't want to take the dog anywhere. He had gotten some dogs in England, but Ali Baba was from there, I think. But anyway, he was an ugly dog, big ugly dog. And but Mary was a wonderful mentor. She's still around in Spring Grove, Pennsylvania. And she taught me how to handle a show leash. She taught me how to groom an Afghan hound. And she taught me a lot. And then she had a young dog that she wanted in a show home, and we got him, and he beat up Ahmed, so I took him back. So we showed, Roy was the big mucky muck, and he would do the showing. And so we showed Ahmed probably 20 sometimes and finally got a reserve. He was your show dog 101 dog.
Sure. Yeah.
And we learned an enormous amount, and we learned that he wasn't very good. That's the biggest thing we learned.
Yeah. We all go through that.
Yes. And it's a very good, worthwhile experience. So we went to Jay Ammon, who was Ammon Hall, Afghan hound. She had a dog, that Judas, who had won the national. She was she had a litter of puppies. And we got this wonderful little brindle bitch, whose name was Ammon Hall Barfly.
Cute name.
She was adorable. She never got above 24 and a half inches, I think, but she thought she was pretty special. And she was. And we learned an awful lot from Jay. Jay was a wonderful teacher. And she said she lived in Hudson, Ohio. And then after her husband died, she moved out to the Pacific Northwest. And I think did much more with Yorkies than she left Afghan hounds and then had Yorkies. She and Sue Kaufman had Shih Tzu, a very active Shih Tzu breeding program before they were recognized by the American Kennel Club, and then some after. But anyway, but she taught us a lot about the business of show dogs. About you always want a dog. She said these Afghan people are crazy because they have all these names that are nothing but consonants and nobody can pronounce. If you want a show dog that people will remember, you give them a name that people will remember. Hence, Ammon Hall Barfly. who had a
Yeah.
sister, 100 proof, and a brother, Demon Rum. And so we took Barfly to a dog show. We took Barfly to Trenton Kennel Club, which then was benched. This was 1966, I think, somewhere around there. And it was a benched show outdoors. And it was same weekend it is now, first weekend in May. And there was a breeder judge, and it was also, I don't know if you remember this, you're maybe too young, Best of Winners was judged before Best of Breed, and only the Best of Winners went in for specials.
Oh no, I've never
That was
experienced that.
before your time.
Yeah, before my time. That's a cool way of doing it, though.
They used to do it, and then they changed as things evolved. But we went, and the breed was being judged by a longtime breeder judge, Alice Carlson. And Barfly was, I think, 7 months old, 6 months old, 7 months old, red brindle, cuter than him. And she won a 5-point major.
Oh, wow.
Best of Winners, 5-point major. The Trenton Kennel Club was then run mostly by Jean Jantos's mother. And Jean, I think, had Winner's dog and was not happy to not put it. But he went on to much more fame and fortune than we did, I think. But anyway, that was, and Barfly ended up being our first champion. She did well. She was absolutely square. She was, she was very showy. She had tons of hair. And she just loved everything. She loved life. She loved everything. As she matured, she got longer and longer and longer. And we decided, Jay wanted us to breed her, so we were going to breed her, could not get her pregnant, could not. So we placed her with a professor at Case Western University in Cleveland, and she went to class with him every day. And so she had a wonderful life until somebody stole her.
Oh,
and
no.
we never found out what happened to her.
Oh, no, that's horrible.
It was terrible. In the meantime, we got some, in the meantime, or after that, we did more research and stuck to it this time. And we contacted Jim Nesbitt of Mecca fame. And he had a blue dog who was 20 months old. That he had sold and had been returned to him because they couldn't get the dog housebroken. Well, I said, I'm a teacher. I'm a classroom teacher. I can get this dog housebroken. I don't think I ever really did, because he was a stealth peer. He would walk around a corner and just, you'd hear the squirt, and he would only lift his leg about 2 inches off the ground. But anyway, we got him, and he was, which is a whole hour story in itself, because it was in January, and the airlines lost him somehow.
Oh.
He wasn't lost, but they didn't know, they couldn't find him, and he hadn't left Chicago was the thing. But so I was up for 2 solid nights. But anyway, so Clifford was really I think, put us on the map. He was a beautiful dog. I'm biased, of course, but he did some nice winning. He finished very quickly, I think, in like 3 weekends. He won the breed at Westchester Kennel Club. He did not win Westminster, unfortunately. He went twice, I think. Bill Lyles took him. But anyway, he was a super dog. He produced beautifully. And so that was where we were. We rescued a bitch which was a wild and woolly expedition. And he was bred to her 3 times. And each of the 3 litters was pretty much exactly the same. Each litter was 7 puppies. Each litter had a red bitch, a black bitch, a couple of blue bitches, and a couple of blue dogs. The first litter had a cream brindle bitch, who was the first one to finish from that litter. And whose call name was ugly. I said, "What's that?" "Well, it's a cream brindle." "Oh, all right." Or a blue brindle. She was.
Were you showing dogs yet? Or did you?
Yes. Well, Babby Tongren entered our lives.
Oh, Babs. Yeah, she was great.
And we were very close for a year, until she died.
We always enjoyed when she came up here to judge. She was always fun.
She was such great fun. She was very witty, and so she called Clifford. We called as Champion Mecca's Eclipse. We called him. They called him Clipper, but our daughter was, like 3 or 4 or 5 when we got him, and she called him Clifford, so he remained Clifford. Babby called him Gilbert. She said, "I can never remember these dogs' names," so she called him Gilbert. And she liked him very much. And so I'm not sure it was Clifford, but Roy had thrown his back out, I think, which happened a lot. And I think it was Clifford. And Babby went up to Roy and said, "Your wife is a much better handler. You should hang this up."
Oh, no.
Well, the problem was that all my life, including now, I can't stay up. I can't do all-nighters. I never have been able to, because if I do, I get sick. I start throwing up the next a day or so later. So Roy was the one that was. I also had 2 little kids at home, and so if there was an overnight trip or a trip that you leave at, he'd get home from work and then we'd pack up the car and he'd go, and on a Friday night, and he'd come home Sunday afternoon. But he'd leave, Friday night and get to the dog show at 6 o'clock, or sometime in the 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. I can't do that. I could never. I still can't do that. I never could, and I didn't in college either, which made for some very interesting papers that I wrote. But I started. So I did some of the showing, but he on long trips, unless we went together, he did the showing. Because I just couldn't. In the meantime, when we had Barfly, I got acquainted with Lynn Clark of Soho English Cockers.
I got my first English Cocker from Lynn Clark.
I did too. And I used to go down there. Parenthetically, I spent from the 4th grade to the middle of college, I played clarinet. I was, and when I started, the requirement was there was the West End Elementary Band. I was in the 4th grade, and the West End Elementary Band in Atlanta was made up. I don't even know if it still exists. Made up of from kids from 6 Atlanta elementary schools, and we would get together on Thursday nights. The only time that the whole band was together, and there was a beginner band and there was an honor band. The honor band played. And they had 2 sets of concerts, of 2 nights of concerts to make money, so that every summer the honor band would go to Daytona Beach, Florida, and play in the Daytona Band Shell. There's a big amphitheater kind of thing. And so we'd had all kinds of fundraisers to get there. But anyway, you had to take private lessons. You had to practice at least a half an hour every day, or you were out. Suffice to say that it was a very good foundation and very good musicians with that kind of background, with that kind of start, with that kind of foundation. And so I continued that junior high, high school, and in the orchestra in college until I bumped up with doubling up on academics because I was going to spend my junior year in France. So anyway, I did start it right before Don and I were married. Fast forward to New York when I was working for AKC. I belonged to a church in Irvington, which is, I was in Dobbs Ferry, and then there's Irvington, and then there's Tarrytown, where the Westchester show is, at Lyndhurst. And so parking at that show was always terrible, so I'd leave my car in the church parking lot and walk up to the show. I couldn't do that now, but, I did. Because parking is always still is terrible. But anyway, where was I? I've gone off in so many different
Lynn
directions.
Clark, and then we got off on
music. Lynn Clark, yes.
Yeah.
The music came in because Lynn was a concert pianist, and she had been accompanist to most of the soloists at the Chicago Symphony before she moved east.
Oh, wow.
Before she married Harry and moved east.
I didn't know that at all.
So I used to take my clarinet down there and some fancy classical music, the Mozart clarinet concerto. And so we'd play, and she'd play the accompaniment. I'd play the concerto part, and then we'd play with puppies.
Wow.
And no, she was brilliant, but also a brilliant musician. And because of, sexism and, Lynn, who did not suffer fools on any level.
Well, I was just kids. I really didn't know her that well. I was 10 years old when I got my first dog from her. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was 26. But I did I got a few English cockers from her. There was a dog called Junior, and I can't remember his registered name, that Jess Pfeiffer got.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It was their first dog. They got it for their daughter, and then Jess ended up showing it, and then they became very active.
Yes.
In the breed. And I got a little brother who then committed suicide somehow. He had a heart attack, heat stroke, or heart attack. The
dog did.
The dog, Herbie. It was Herb, Spice's brother. Lynn had a bitch called Soho Spice.
Yes, I remember that bitch.
Okay, well, I had a little brother. And Junior, Jess Pfeiffer's first dog, English Cocker, was a litter brother. So anyway, that's where I got that. And then she got a dog back who had been mistreated. Soho Brigand, black, white, and ticked. And she said, "Oh, Midge, you're wonderful with shy dogs here. So I got Brigand, and I took him to obedience too, same obedience class, because I discovered, I showed him a couple of times, and he was beautiful. And he was reserved at the Harrisburg Kennel Club. There was an open dog class with Jane Forsyth, Annie Clark, Richard Bauer, another handler, and me. And Brigand was reserved. Percy Roberts was the judge, even though on the down and back, this is when I discovered that there were some things you didn't do with this dog. You take him down and back, so I took him down and I brought him back, and Percy lifted his hand up like this, and Brigand went flat.
Oh no!
He also did that if he was lying on the floor and you crossed your legs. So he had obviously been hit and kicked.
Yeah, he had some issues, that's for sure.
So he didn't get shown anymore. But he did raise a litter of Afghan hounds.
So why did you go to English Cocker? Like you had the Afghans, and then
because remember I told you my father had this dog that was probably an English Cocker.
So that made you want one.
So that made me want one.
Okay.
And I loved Lynn.
Yeah, she was great. I ended up getting 3 dogs from Lynn. So yeah.
So I did too. And then I got a black bitch. Soho's soul sister. Call name was Dinah. She was a cute little thing. But then something happened. I think it was when Roy and I were breaking up that I sent her back to Lynn. And I got reconnected with Lynn when she was ill, right before she died. When I was at AKC.
Wow.
But anyway, so there we are.
When did you go to AKC? What year?
1981, January 1981. I had an interview in October. Roy and I had split up by then. And I had finished my master's degree in counseling. Couldn't find a job. I'll take anything. Well, you're overqualified. You have a master's degree. Yeah, but I have 2 children, 3 cats, 4 dogs. So anyway, Roy had gone off to California to seek his fortune. He was working in a travel agency there.
Now, was he out of dogs at that point then?
No, he was still judging, I think, because I think the travel agency he worked for was managed by Sandy Weinrob.
Oh, okay.
Sonala Afghan Hounds.
Yeah, I recognize the name.
He did some judging. I don't know, but he didn't have any dogs. I had them. And I had to place the dogs and the cats. I got. Then Roy wanted to judge Salukis, and he wanted to judge Dachshunds, so that's how we got in all this. Oh, when Amy, our daughter, was 5 or 6 years old, she wanted a dog. But the Afghans and Salukis were too big. She didn't want one of those. They were too big.
So I didn't know you had Salukis too. Oh my God.
Oh yeah, we had. Roy wanted to judge Salukis. No, he was judging Afghan hounds, and I don't know how. Oh, I applied for Dachshunds, so he got Dachshunds, and I did not. Roy always wanted to judge because being a classic narcissist. Judges are important. So he wanted to judge. And so that was his goal, and he became a judge. And he said, if you want to judge too, he said, you should apply to judge too, and then we can go places together. I don't think he really wanted me to go with him, but I mean, that's just conjecture. But anyway, and I said, I'm not ready. I care too much what people think. I'm not ready. And it took me 3 years. And then after the 3 years went by, and I thought, I can do this. I don't care if my friends are in the ring. I don't care. Yeah, I don't care. I can do this. I can separate that. And I did, and I still do. The friendship cloak comes off at the ring entrance. And truth be told, I might be a little harder on my friends. And my breeding, if anybody comes in with the, breeding, dogs of my breeding. I mean, Clifford puppies were obviously Clifford puppies to almost anybody. Do you remember Doris Weir?
Yes.
Okay. Mrs. Weir loved Clifford, and no matter where she went in the United States, if there was a Clifford kid there, she usually put it up. And there came a time, Bill Lyles had Clifford for a year, and I got him back, and I showed him very sparingly after that. Especially when I bumped into Doris Weir at a dog show, and she said, "Oh, Midge," she said, "I was out judging in Colorado or Utah or something." And she said, "My winner's dog was a son of your old dog." And I thought, uh-oh, I guess it's time. So Clifford was retired after that. But his children did very well. The bitch that we rescued that had 3 litters from him, we got a bitch from each of those litters that finished. Totally clips, partially clips, and oldest profession, Violet. I thought she was the best one, and she took the longest to finish. So I don't know. But they all had tons of hair. Clifford had tons of hair. They all had tons of hair. Even the bitches, when they'd come in season, wouldn't drop coat. I said, "Oh, please, please drop coat," but they wouldn't. So anyway, that's the long story of how I got into.
What year did you start judging then, Midge?
1973.
Okay.
My first dog show was October 1973, Ramapo.
Oh,
The Ramapo Kennel Club. I was approved for Afghans, and I did Afghans. And then a few years after that, I said Amy wanted a dog, and the Afghans and Salukis were too big. We were very good friends with Roger and Terry Smith, who lived not far from us, and we ran into them dog shows. Roy wanted to judge Salukis. They had a champion Saluki bitch who was very lovely. So Roy signed on to her so he could apply for Salukis. And they bred her to one of Winifred Lucas's dogs. We got a puppy bitch. And then we got a dog from Winifred Lucas down the line. From Winifred Lucas, Srinagar. We had a Srinagar dog. I went out there to California, and I was judging Antelope Valley or Apple Valley, something like that. But Winifred Lucas was in Southern California, but she had a cabin called Cabin. It was pretty big at Lake Arrowhead. And she said, "Come, I'll take you up, and you can look at the dogs, and then I'll take you back to your hotel." And it was snowing at Lake Arrowhead. I think it was April. And I walked into a room with, I'm not kidding, 45 loose Salukis.
Oh, jeez.
There was no place for me to sit. They all got along. They were all lying on the floor, on couches, on benches, on wherever. It was this undulating mass of, Saluki. Wow. The dog that I had gone out to, Roy had negotiated with Winifred about this 9-month-old puppy, who was a son of Brahma, I can't remember his full name, Srinagar Brahma. He was the top coursing Saluki of all time. He was also a champion. And the mother was Vonda, who was apparently very well known and was the champion bitch. She was lovely. And I immediately put my foot in it by saying, "Oh my God, he's such a weird color." Not the right thing to say. She said, "That is a deer grizzle, the preferred color of Allah." Okay. Well, now that I've messed that up, but she did consent for us to have him.
Okay.
And he arrived. And of course, being one of that many dogs, he had the personality of a cardboard box.
Oh, poor guy.
But he was a house dog. He was and he finished in 2 weekends. And he was 10 months, by then he was 10 months old. We said, okay, now what do we do with him? So we waited for him to grow up. We specialed him a little locally, but he was not a showy dog. And he produced nicely. We did take him coursing. Where we lived in Littlestown, Pennsylvania. I don't know if you've heard of Dean Wright. Dean Wright pretty much started lure coursing and got involved. And he lived right down the hill from us and would have lure coursing at his place and matches. And then people got interested in it. And then he got involved with AKC and lure coursing became a very big thing.
Yeah. Wow.
So
how did the AKC come? Because you needed a job, but
I needed a job. Well, at that point I had been approved for Afghans and Dachshunds, and I was going. So Roy left. I thought, well, maybe I can judge some more, and I'll apply for more breeds. So I sent a letter to Bill Schmick, who was vice president, and I think he was in charge of judging operations at that time. And I said, here's my application for additional breeds, but, we've talked at dog shows about judges, a lot of judges not knowing what end to put a food dish under. And I've been a classroom teacher. I'm now a master's level counselor. I have a master's degree in counseling. I might be useful. We've talked about educating judges. I might be useful in these areas. And so he called. I went for an interview. By that time, I did have a job, a terrible job, 50 miles away, and that I hated. And so I had an interview in October, and they said, "When can you start?" Pat Beresford.
So were you like a field rep then?
Well, I was offered. At first, he said, "We have an opening in the events plans department. Pat Beresford's son is going to work there over Christmas, and you will be vice chairman of event plans. And that gets you in the door. May not pay you a living wage for New York, but it gets you in the door, and then we can work on the education part of it." So I did. And they said, "We will, you can start." I said, "I need the Christmas vacation to pack and move, find a place to live." So I did. My mother was from Dobbs Ferry, New York. She was from New York City, her father was chief lawyer for Aetna Insurance. And when she was 10, they moved out to Hastings-on-Hudson. And her best friend, her lifelong best friend, had passed away, but her husband was still in Dobbs Ferry. So I called him and said, I need a place to live as inexpensively as possible. So he found me an apartment.
Nice.
And so I had a place to come. So I had, and they said, we will hold your job till the 2nd of January, which is the first Monday. And I said, well, I need a day to get my kids in school. Amy was going to college and Andy was in high school. No, Amy was in, I don't remember. Anyway. No, Amy was going to college. Was going to start college that fall. Anyway, because I moved after graduation. So I did it. I don't know how. I got there, and I loved it. I loved it. I was in event plans for about 5 months, and then Bill Schmick said, okay, here's the deal. John Mandeville is, he was in charge of the Gazette at that time, but he said, we're going to start a judge's education department, and that will be under John Mandeville. And John is eccentric, and he said, I think you can work with him, and if you can't, we'll make you Queen of the Field Reps or something. But he said, this will at least, be a step up, and it will get you in the area that is your area of expertise. Sort of. So it was, so we did that, and I was director of judges education.
How long were you with the AKC? How long were you with the AKC?
9.5 years.
Okay.
I met Don at Westminster, of course. Well, I was in charge at AKC the last 7 or 8 years I was there. I was in charge of the slideshows and videos. Mm-hmm. Slideshows that then became videos. And so around Westminster, there were always seminars. So I would always go to the seminars to drum up trade for clubs to do a video, a breed video. Actually, this was all, I think, Chet Collier's idea for judges' education, to produce a 15 to 20-minute video on each breed of dogs. And there were two, and it was started out with slideshows and then became videos. And that was mine. And so I was effectively out of the office for half the year because we did either slideshow shoots, say that 3 times fast, or video shoots twice a year. And we did them at a specific site. We asked for a committee from each parent club, which is why I now have totally white hair. And the script for these slideshows and videos was one voice reading the standard and another voice after each section reading and kind of clarification, explanation of the standard, which got us in terrible trouble with the committees. If the committee was good, the slideshow was good, or the video was good.
And you said you met Don at Westminster?
Yes. I went I always went in to the. I always stayed in the city over Westminster because we worked practically 24/7. It was almost like being in an emergency room. As everybody comes in, everybody wanted to meet. Slideshow committees wanted to meet. We always had 8 going and 8 in the works, which meant lots of meetings. So apparently he was attending the seminars, and this was early in the morning. I got to the place where they were holding the seminars fairly early in the morning, and Jean Fournier was in charge of the seminars. I could not find her, so I went down into the restaurant, the hotel restaurant, and there was a man having breakfast, reading the newspaper, that I thought looked kind of doggy. I don't know why. Either I'd seen him before. I don't know. Anyway, so I said, "Excuse me, have you seen? Are you part of the seminars?" He said, "Yes, I'm attending the seminars." I said, "Have you seen Jean Fournier? I'm looking for her." He said, "Oh no, I haven't seen her. She'll be here. I'm sure she will because she's in charge. And why don't you sit down and have some coffee?" And I said, "Well, no, I really have to get this." So that was that. And then at the lunch break, this nice gentleman came over and said, why don't you sit at our table for lunch? I'm happy to do that. So that was, Saturday and Sunday are the seminars. So that was Saturday and Sunday. Monday, I went into the bar at the Pennsylvania Hotel because I saw Lee Canalizo there. "Oh, Midge, come on in." So I went in, and she said, "You haven't met my friend Don Martin." And I said, "Well, actually, I have." And she said, "Oh no, you have. No, this is Don Martin. This is my friend Midge, Midge Horn. Blah blah blah." So we had a drink, and we did again the next night, and we kept in touch, and got married June 2nd of 1990.
Wow.
We had a system. Well, the following year at Westminster, there was the big judges thing party.
Yeah.
Wally's group, SCJA. I can never. Anyway, there was a party, and Don invited me to the party, and I said, "Well, I'd love to, but my friend Damer Bolte's father died, and I promised to have dinner with her, but it's very early. So I could come later, or if you'd like to ask somebody else, go ahead." "Oh, no. So that was that. The rest is history, as they say.
As they say, yes.
As they say. He came out a couple of times. I came out to Chicago a couple of times.
Now, he still have dogs?
No, he did not. He had 2 finches that Brian and Nancy had given him, and he was in a condo with his daughter Heidi at that point, and all of his kids were local. Brian and Nancy were 15 minutes away, and he kind of sometimes worked for them, because they rented his house, the house that they had grown up in.
Oh, okay.
Brian and Nancy rented that property from him. So he would pick up dogs at the airport. When Nancy's truck died, he arranged for, he met her someplace and picked up dogs. I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, he would pick up dogs at the airport. He would, he kind of worked for them.
He stayed involved with them.
He stayed involved with them, and he judged, and he did a lot of stewarding. Because after we were married, we did a lot of stewarding, and I started judging again.
So after AKC, were you married while you were still with AKC?
No, I had to. I couldn't be married to her. No, in AKC, you can't be married to a judge.
Okay. So you gave up AKC to get married.
So I gave up AKC to get married, and I went back to judging. And I set the precedent. I said, I have worked on 100 breed videos, slideshows and videos. And I said, I came into AKC judging Afghans and Dachshunds. I'm going to leave with the hound group. I said, with the education I have had,
sure.
I said, there is no one in the world who has had the education, thank you, that I have had. And so if I can't pass any test that you throw at me, then I shouldn't be judging. But I want the hound group. So I took the breed tests, and I made the breed tests. There was one day, a couple of years before that, John Mandeville came in with the complete dog book, ripped it in several pieces, and said, "You write tests on this. You write tests on this. You write tests on this." So we made the first tests because, of course, part of my counseling training is a course in test construction. And I did some sneaky things. I really did. I took in the front of the dog book, there is a drawing of a standard schnauzer with the points, anatomical points on it.
You know
so
what I mean?
I made 20 copies of that and went all over the AKC and said, match the anatomical parts to the place on the dog. I said, we're going to start testing judges. It was very interesting.
I'm sure.
Very interesting. Remember my telling Bill Schmick about a lot of judges not knowing what end to put footage under. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
So now you're in Chicago with Don.
Now I'm in Chicago, in the Chicago area with Don. I have a wire-haired dachshund bitch because tying up one of the threads, when Amy wanted a dog, a smaller dog, Roy and I both had admired wire-haired dachshunds. So we went to Pat Beresford was married to Bobby Fowler at the time. So we went to Pat and Bobby Fowler and said, we want a show wire dachshund. And they found one.
Of course.
Fanny Parkle. Earthwood's Farthing. Now you get a 10-year-old to say Earthwood's Farthing. Okay. So she was Fanny Farkle. This was at that time, the time of Laugh In and Sparkle Farkle. I showed her. I finished her, and we
did Dawn show as well. Did Dawn show at that point?
This was long before Dawn.
Oh, okay.
But about 6 months, about a year before Don and I got married, I said, I don't want a man, I want a dog. So I went to Patty Nelson of Solo Wire Dachshunds. I had gotten to know Michael Zolo and Solo Seafarer, who I adored. I met him when he was a 4-month-old puppy at the Pointer slideshow shoot. And he said, this is my next special. And I said, I can see why. So I called Patty and I said, I'm at AKC. I need a dog. I said, if you want, I can't show her. If you want it, or him, because I wanted a him, so wouldn't come in season, wouldn't have all that trouble. So, and she said, I have 2 puppies. So I went out and I saw the puppies, and there was Danny, and Danny was very sweet and very nice. And then she came downstairs to the family room carrying. Patty never allowed the dachshunds to go stairs on their own. She didn't want any problems. So she carried this puppy down, swiggly, squirmy puppy, who ran all the way. She put her down at the foot of the stairs. She ran all the way across the family room, jumped in my lap, stuck her tongue up my nose, nibbled my nose, and I said, "Well, I guess I'm getting a bitch and not a dog." But I said, "You have to show her, and when she's ready to be bred, you breed her, and we'll see." But I said, "This is a few years down the road." So she said, "This is kind of rent a dog." I said, "Yeah, kind of." And I was doing a lot of traveling, of course, for all the slideshows and videos and stuff. I'd go to, because I went to a lot of national specialties and I'd speak and everything. But I got Bridget, and when Bridget was in season, or if I was traveling, a lot of times Patty, I could take her to Patty and Patty would keep her. There was also a friend of mine that would take her, while I was traveling. But yes, Don and Bridget were friends, because when he asked me to marry him, I said, that includes Bridget too, doesn't it? And he said, "Would you come without her?" I said, "No." He said, "Well, then it's fine." But it was fine anyway. No. But I finished her, we bred her, and that's full circle.
How long were you and Dawn together?
32 and a half years.
Wow.
He died, it'll be 3 years on the 29th. This is a very bad time for me.
I'm sure, yes.
We had a wonderful marriage. I love his kids. He loved my kids. And I think my kids liked him better than they liked me at some point.
And what else do you have? You just have the Hound Group, Mitch? Or do you have more?
No, I have the Terrier Group too.
Okay, I knew that. Yes, I knew that.
I had and it was still, I got the rest of the Terrier Group. I did it in 2 chunks. At the time, they were still doing hands-on evaluations, which I think is still a good test.
Are you going to apply for more? Are you happy with just those 2?
No, I'm fine. Yeah. I'm fine. I'm kind of, I've developed a couple of, medical things. I have a nasty colitis that's under control, but you never know. Yes. And I have the knees and the legs, and I'm working on getting all that better. But traveling is, to be perfectly frank, Will, I love judging. Judging is, I love it. I always have, I always will. The traveling I don't like very much.
Yeah, that's the common issue a lot of people have.
And to be perfectly truthful, and I've told other people this, it's not as much fun without Don. It just isn't.
Yeah.
Even when we'd go, because we didn't have one of those clauses that said we have to go together, like Houston and Toddy. But even when we'd go separately, there's always, what did you do? Did you find, how did you do? And who was there? And, I don't have that anymore. And my son is now living in I have an attached mother-in-law apartment that we fixed up for him. He's away he's on a golf weekend right now, but with his sister. And I have been playing golf since both my kids now play golf.
But you do plan on coming back and judging, so.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
Good.
Yes, I do. I love it. And I think I'm pretty good at it.
You are. There's no question you are. I'm gonna give you one more question because we're gonna
Okay.
run out of time. If you could
Well, I
meet,
know, you wind me up, I go on forever.
that's great though. Makes for fun stories. If you could meet the 20-year-old Midge now, is there advice you'd give her?
Learn all you can and have a good time.
I think you
Enjoy
did
the
that.
dogs. Enjoy the people. What?
I think you've done that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, yes, indeed. I take my judging very seriously, and I think you need to.
Right.
On the other hand, I want everybody to have a good time in my ring. I want the dogs to have a good time. I want the people. Only, you've only got one winner.
Right.
I mean, you got winner's dog, winner's bitch, and now you have select.
But ultimately, we have one winner. So.
But ultimately, it's one best of breed winner.
Right.
So, and I think something that is very important is to give every dog your full attention. Watch them going around the ring. You send them down and back, and you send them around the ring. Watch them. Watch them. There's so many judges that don't. And one of these days, I'll get to my two pet peeves, which are the misuse of bait and the misuse of choke chains.
Of what? What was the second one?
Choke chains.
Oh, choke chains, yeah.
Where the ring is under the ear and the dog is leaning sideways.
That's one of George's big pet peeves, too.
Oh, I can't. It just drives me crazy. And I will frequently say, would you do me a favor? Would you move the chain so that the ring is on top and pop and release? Give it a pop before you start out. Just do that for me once, would you please? And sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't.
No, I get that.
But and then this constant feeding, you look at the teeth and there's liver, and the dog's going chomp, 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 chomp.
Yeah.
Those are my two. Those are my two. So thank you for letting me get those in.
No, those are good pet peeves. There are a lot of
I was always going to apply, in answer to your other question, I was always going to apply for the sporting group because I had English cockers.
Well, you should have.
And I should have. But, time goes by.
Yeah, it does.
And there was always something that came up. I'm working, remember?
Yeah, you're still working. I know, Mitch.
And I have
no stopping
continuing education credits to finish before the end of September.
Wow. Well,
I'm getting there.
Well, it's been great talking to you, and I'm glad you agreed to do
so
this.
Much, Will.
It's fun to see you, and it's always fun to see you, though. So
thank you. You too.
I look forward to seeing you. Maybe we'll be on a panel together somewhere. That
would be nice.
Yeah,
that would be very nice.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Will. Mitch. Well, thank you so much, and I'll let you get back to your work.
Oh yeah. Well, some of these continuing education credits are kind of dull and boring. So, oh no, you're learning. It's
That's
learning. Right. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Take care now.
You too. All right, we're off. Can you send me some pictures?
Okay.
Just a handful. Well, I'd like one picture of you for a cover shot. Okay. And then if you want to put some dogs in and you showing dogs or judging dogs, doesn't matter.
Hello?
I only need about 5 or 6.
Okay. I can do that.
Can you email them to me?
Maybe.
Or you can even message them to me if you want. If you have them on your Facebook, or you can message them to me on your phone, you can send them to me through Messenger. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can.
Okay, excellent. I'd really appreciate it.
Yeah.
We got about 2 weeks before it goes out. The guy
Okay.
that does all my editing, he's away on vacation, so he'll have to wait till he gets back. So
I'm sorry it was so disjointed, but I get on a tangent and
that's
go.
okay. I followed along. And when only one time did I get a little confused was when I asked about Dawn showing dogs, then you went back, and
Oh yeah, back and then
but then I
came.
caught up. So
Yeah.
if I
Well,
can
you know,
get you on.
there was a point to that. It takes a while to find it. My children frequently ask, "Now, mother, is there a point to this story?"
Well, it's so funny because when we were messaging back and forth, you were like, "Don't you be prepared? You're already prepared. You just all right. Here we go."
Just flip the switch.
Well, that was great, Midge. Thank you. And
Thank you.
I think this was sent from my email address. So unless you want me to text you my email address, do you want me to do that through Messenger, just so you have it?
I'll do them through Messenger.
Okay. All
You can
right.
send me your
Perfect.
email address if you want, and I'm glad to have it. But
Okay. Messenger
okay,
is just as easy because I can take them off that and send them off.
okay,
So,
all righty.
all right. Great. Well, thank you so much. You look fabulous too, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. We'll catch up to you somewhere.
Yes, I hope so.
All
Take
right,
care.
Midge. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks, Midge. And you thought you'd have nothing to say. Oh my gosh. If you like what you see here, make sure you press the like, share, and subscribe button. And don't forget about the podcast, The Dog Show Drive with myself and Wayne Kavanagh from Canine Chronicle TV and Pro Plan. See you next time.